Good evening. The Scottish Government's coming under renewed pressure to clarify its tax policy. It follows the UK Government's mini-budget last week, in which the top rate of income tax in England is being cut.
As income taxes devolve, Scotland's rates and bands are decided by ministers at Holyrood. But the mini-budget has raised questions for all.
This radical departure is required to deal with the immense challenges which we are facing, and we're not alone in the world in facing these challenges. And I fully support the tax cuts. I fully support the other changes which the government is proposing. And the big question now for the Scottish Government, the SNP, is whether they replicate those changes.
At the Treasury, the Chancellor's remaining tight-lipped today. He knows some in his party are jittery, but others seem convinced his tax-cutting plan will pay off.
It's likely this will see a faster-growing economy, a shallower recession or even no recession at all, compared with what was previously predicted.
And he wants Holyrood ministers to make similar tax changes.
If they decide to widen the tax gap between Scotland and the rest of the UK, we will see poorer economic performance here in Scotland and, as a consequence, falling tax revenues.
The Scottish Government can't make changes to income tax until April next year, but they've already made pretty clear that they won't match the Chancellor's plans. However, if they don't make any changes to the top rate of income tax, the gap between what's paid by the highest earners in Scotland and those in the rest of the UK would widen to 6 pence in the pound. And that raises the possibility that some of those high earners might choose to move elsewhere.
And the Scottish Government has now to make decisions about tax. There have been some warnings that high earners would move to England if Scotland retained the high top rate of tax. Do we know how likely that is to happen?
The honest answer is no, we don't know. This is all unprecedented. What we do know is that if you get a country, a nation state where there's free movement across a border and you get diverging tax rates, the United States being one example, you do find people behaving as a result in ways that try to minimise their tax affairs. Those with the highest earnings have the highest incentive to make those changes, and they can afford some good accountants. So we can assume there will be so-called behavioural effects. Yes, some people will want to stay in Scotland because they think they should pay higher tax at high earnings. They value public services, they like the quality of life, but others may leave. If they don't, they can change their tax affairs to get caught by the Westminster tax net rather than the Scottish one. Or some people may choose not to come to Scotland because they perceive it as a high tax environment, not just on income tax, but if they want to buy a big house here, the tax is very much higher as well. It doesn't take many high earners to make quite a big difference. A sixth of Scottish income tax revenue comes from people earning over £150,000.